Welcome, everyone, to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. Today, we've got a super interesting conversation and topic with Shashwat Ghosh. Shashwat, you have been a CMO, a fractional CMO for a long time. You've worked in hardware, software, services, SaaS. You've worked with large companies, smaller companies, and you're going to talk to us today about the concept of CMO Darwinism. And I think that has something to do with the evolution. What the CMO is today and where it's headed is the hint there. But before we get started in, if you wouldn't mind just expanding a little bit more on your background before we get started.
Thanks, Steve. Pleasure to be here, and thank you for the introduction. It kind of captures the essence of what I do. In my current role, I actually wear multiple hats, three ones in particular. I'm actually the co-founder of Philips Consulting, and what we do is we are a boutique marketing agency, B2B marketing agency, and we are focused on startups, SaaS companies, and mid-size ITES companies. I'm also the fractional CMO of vertical SaaS company called FieldAssist, which is on its road to 10 million. It's one of the very profitable companies out here. Very few companies are so profitable across this part of the world. And the third one that I am part of is I'm a GTM advisor at Quantum Street AI. That's also a very unique company. We were the first ones to launch AI fund worldwide about 5 or 6 years back. And it was at that point of time by the name of, and today we have close to about 7 billion AUM, which is a very, very unique thing. Along with that, we have clients like BNP Paribas, Deutsche Bank, HSBC. So that kind of covers what I do when I'm actually across clients, not meeting co-founders and
Well, good. Well,
stay.
with all that background, tell us about your point of view on what CMO Darwinism is. What do we need to know about CMO Darwinism?
So put that CMO Darwinism concept into perspective, I want to talk about 3 or 4 external as well as internal stuff that is happening. So if you look at the life of a CMO, or the average life of the tenure of the CMO has, as per the latest research of Strengths and Strat, is that it's almost like less than 2 years. And almost 11% of the B2B is less than 1 year. If you are a B2C CMO, then it's almost less than about 2 years. So that's how and this change is very, very pronounced in the last 10 years. The average life of a CMO has reduced dramatically. Also, what has happened is because of the COVID pressures, the budget pressures, there was a research of LinkedIn B2B Institute where they are talking that almost 76% of the CMOs have a pressure of short-termism, which essentially means that they have to prove the ROI as soon as possible, probably 1 quarter, 2 quarters. And if they wait for 4 quarters, they might not even be there in the company, right? So that's the reality of the situation. And hence, what is important is, I'm actually looking at it at a concept in biology, which was done by Charles Darwin. It was a very famous theory, Darwin theory. And what he said was that all the creatures are going through evolution, and the fittest one will actually survive. If you take that concept into organizations, change is happening right now. If you look 5 years back, there was no CRO position. Look 7, 8 years back, there was no customer success position, right? All of these are evolution that has happened. And the marketing also needs to evolve. So that's the premise of Darwinism that I'm going to talk about next hour or so.
Great. So very interesting, and it's very near and dear to my heart. We probably the longest series of podcasts we've done here is on why do B2B CMOs fail so quickly, right? Because of this concept of Darwinism, and with the changes that are happening, and they're from all over the place. You can talk about AI, you can talk about silos, you can talk about lack of good content, misunderstanding, misalignment on the ICP. There's all kinds of reasons. But the idea here is an evolution first of the go-to-market strategy, right? And that CMOs need to understand the go-to-market evolution that's happening in order to have a strongest and fit Darwin kind of perspective and survive in this new environment. So what's your point of view on the go-to-market strategy and the evolution that's happening there?
So if you go back about 10 years, 5 years, even 2 years back, a lot of go-to-market that you actually had was largely stuck in the AOP presentation, which is the annual plan. When you actually prepared those annual plan presentations, that is where it was stuck. Nobody actually changed the go-to-market because there was no requirement like that. B2B as such was very slow to change. But in the last 5 years, because of the way internal as well as external factors have come into play, you need to continuously change the go-to-market. Old playbooks are no longer kind of safe. It is not something that you just refer to that old playbook, go and target the MQLs, and that will take you home, or just go do the branding, and that's it. Look at the awareness, look at the consideration. Doesn't work that way now. Whether it's a large company or a small company, whether it is targeting the CISOs, CIOs, or any CXO, you need to continuously evolve. You need to evolve the GTM. That's very important. Today, you cannot have the sales and marketing, customer success, and product all four working in four different silos and then expecting magic to happen. Doesn't work that way. Now you need to kind of come together and work towards the go to market. Also, it's incremental GTM. That's very important. It is not that once a year you develop the GTM and then hope and pray that that GTM will work. It doesn't work that way. You need to evaluate it every quarter, see the progress, figure out what is working, what is not working, remove the stuff which is not working, and add on newer experiments. And for this, there's another very important thing that if you actually have to work out your experiments, GTM experiment, where is the rise of the fractionals that is happening today? You need to, as a CMO, you need to bring in the fractional expert, get give them the objectives, give them the KPIs, ask them to set up that entire process, get the results, and then incorporate it in your GTM or incorporate it in your marketing plan. That's how the world is changing, and that's how you need to change. Whether you are a large company or a small company, it doesn't matter. You have to try and take the GTM, incremental GTM into picture, get the fractionals, and set the ball rolling. That's very important agenda for 2025.
So it's interesting. The idea of the need for an evolution is founded on that there's challenges, there's problems in the current go-to-market approach, right? And so you've talked about silos, right? You've talked about go-to-market plans that are set kind of at the beginning of the year on an annual basis. And then, the problem is they don't incrementally grow or flex based on what's happening around you. The third thing is that you've talked about is that we don't experiment enough, right? And one thing that we know is that change is inevitable. So if we stay the same, our playbook, our go-to-market strategy stays the same, it will not work better, it will work worse, right? So these are some of the challenges that you're talking about. But you have a framework to think about go-to-market success. You call it the EPIC framework. Can you explain what that is and kind of help us, give us a framework here so we're not reeling and saying, okay, my gosh, I've got to evolve. I don't know how. What is the framework? How can you help us think about this evolution?
So before you come to the framework, you need to accept that my GTM is broken, right? That realization is very, very important. Unless you realize that there's a problem, you will never try and solve that problem. Now, how do you figure out whether there's a problem? You'll find that either the sales or the marketing are not working in conjunction. They are in two different directions. They are pursuing different goals, right? So that's a problem statement. If you look at the last 1 year, see whether your uh, tofu is going up or is it stagnating, right? You need to figure out why is it stagnating. Has your ICP changed? Has your proposition changed? Has your narrative changed in the market? What has happened? Another thing that you should look at is today, especially after COVID, Gartner has told that almost earlier there were just 6 guys taking a decision. Obviously, there's a buying committee that takes a decision. It's not like a B2C scenario. Now, if you have 6 guys taking a decision, and now that number has increased to 10, are you engaging all these 10? Do you even know who are the 10? That's very important. So, do you have a playbook for those 10 guys? Who are those 10 guys who are taking decision? Are they overtly, covertly taking decisions, right? The old formula of having a champion or having those band or medic or whatever you want to call it, that playbook is not really working now. You need to evolve a playbook into something like, am I doing measuring the tofu of your count, which is all the 10 guys put together? Are you taking that into account? Do you have the tech stack to actually figure out what is working and what is not working, right? And then take real time decisions. So these are very important. Now, once you have actually figured out that, okay, this is um broken and I need to fix it, then how do you fix it? Right? And that is where the EPIC framework comes into picture. So in the EPIC framework, what I talk about is you need to take 4 things into consideration. The first one, where can drive the conversation? And that part is called ecosystem, which is the E of EPIC. Now, ecosystem, as in there might be influencers, there might be tech analysts, there might be PR that you can use. There might be case studies. There are multiple things, Gartners of the world you can use to ensure that the ecosystem talks about your proposition, talks about the narrative that you are trying to promote in the market. Now, that's very important. So that's the sales part of it. Of course, sales with marketing can obviously work really well over there. Then you have things which marketing can drive. So inbound and outbound, which is the I portion of Epic. So inbound, what is the kind of leads that you are getting? What uh, in the own media, what kind of podcast, what kind of uh, content are you kind of talking about? What is the narrative that you are trying to weave in? That becomes very important. Whether the outbound guys are only talking about leads, are they trying to build up relationship? Do you have the software to figure out all of this is happening or not? Are you doing mass customization with the use of AI? Are you bringing in AI into the picture? Right? Now that becomes very, very important. The third part, which is the P, as in the product. What is the PLG story? How are you bringing in the product-led growth part? What is the do you have a different product for, say, the smaller guys or the premium guys or the enterprise guys? How different is the experience? How do you upsell? How do you cross sell? Is it a random fire that you try, or are you using a sniper and shooting with that kind of a sniper rifle? What is your strategy, and how are you ensuring that the product that is being given, which is not some SaaS product which has multiple things that you don't want, right? It should be serving your needs or the customer's need, and not kind of a mix of stuff that nobody needs, right? That's very, very important. That's on the product part of the story. And then the last one is community, which most of the companies kind of forget about community because they are very, very internally focused. Is the community talking about you? See Grammarly, see Jasper. There are so many examples where the community is trying to bring in. Check out Slack. The community is, I mean, they don't have to do marketing. It's actually the community which is using the product and giving advice. Look at HubSpot. Look at what happened at Dreamforce, right? Those are the things that community is so strong, whether it's a small enterprise, a small company, large enterprise, uh, everywhere community is very important. What are the kind of case studies that you're using? Are you getting references? So that's the C of community. So that's how the EPIC framework goes. I
So
hope that makes sense.
it does. And there's two parts of that that I really want to talk about here. Um, the idea of the ICP and understanding the ICP. We all know Gartner, as you brought up, Gartner a couple of years ago came out and said, hey, CMOs, you got to be more like chief customer officers. Like you got to really deeply understand your customer. You got to understand your ICP more than just in sales calls, right? Which is important, but a sales call is guarded. There's a shield up in the middle. You're being sold to. There's only so much that you're going to reveal and that you're going to talk about. And that conversation is usually about your product and your tech. And it's not about the greater ecosystem that they're living in, right? The world of the challenges that they have in total. You might be a small part of a solution of that, but we have to be advisors. We have to be consultants, on their total job. And so the more that we know about the ICP, I had another CMO put it to me this last week. He said, look, in today's day and age, right? In today's day and age, most companies have between 20 and 30 competitors. In today's day and age, that buying committee that you're talking about has grown 3 to 4 times over the last 15 years. So there's buying committees that have 10, 15, 20 on them. The competitive nature is absolutely intense. In the CMO that I was on, we were talking about the importance of understanding the ICP. He says, here's the way I see it, Steve, is that the company that understands their ICP best has the largest competitive advantage in the market. And to me, that's a big part of the evolution of the go-to-market process. We all know that the customer is the highest authority, right? Highest authority in the entire business. So if that's the case, why aren't we, and that they're complex and they're changing all the time, because the dynamics in their market, in their industry is changing all the time. So it's kind of like you have like doctors, at least in the US, they're required to do continuing education. It's a requirement to keep their license. We as marketers should think about it the same way. We should have a continuing education, never-ending education on our ICP. And that's what, on a fractional or full-time basis, that's what puts us in a seat at the table, right? That's what gives us a voice of authority within our own organizations where we can help every department. So I liked that you called that out of the framework. And as I'm thinking about the things that are truly evolutionary in the go-to-market process that we need, That to me is one of them. And the other one is about community, because the peer community and their voice means more than ours. We're the sellers, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think those are two great call outs. I would also want to add, see, ICP is a bit of a misnomer and a kind of very misunderstood term. Imagine if you are actually launching a new product. How do you figure out what is the ICP? Who is the ICP? Right? So, in the good old days, what you used to do was you get into the market, do certain qualitative research to figure out whether there is a fitment or not, or get into a beta mode and figure out what is working, what is not working, and then tune in the message. Somehow we have kind of lost that art into the uh, today Google Analytics of the world. There is so much of analytics that you have lost the art of selling or art of marketing. That needs to come back. The human element needs to come back in the age of AI. That is very, very important. That will actually, of course, semantics aside, whether you are called the chief commercial officer or chief marketing officer or some other name, but you need to own the ICP, you need to own the content and define content around your ICP. Define the narrative around your ICP. That's the tough part. And that is where the guys who get it right will be the fittest, will be in the evolution chain, the at the top of the value chain, and they will be actually making the most of it. Not the guys who are still trying to figure out who is the ICP. See, if you have 10, 12 guys, then you need to narrow down your ICP. And that's very, very important. Narrow down. You might have 7, 8, 10 products. B2B is never a single product scenario. Which particular product is actually appealing to any particular segment? That will change. And if you understand that part, communicate it to the sales, that is when magic will happen. And that's very important.
What is you've talked about like organizational DNA, like what it takes, right, from a DNA of an organization in order to put together, strategically plan, put together, and execute upon a go-to-market strategy. What are the DNA elements that we need?
Steve, I think this is a subject which is very, very close to my heart. And see, the way you should try and uh, understand this perspective is that your DNA is different from my DNA, right? Even if you look at, say, within APAC region, think about now organization. The GTM of a APAC region will be very different from the GTM of a European country or, say, Latin America, right? It is very different. It is not that you create one GTM and then cut, copy, paste across the world. That will not work. And that is where you actually need a lot of brain power and the fractional experiment to ensure that you get it right? And once you get it right, then try and make it a part of your process. But there will be multiple experiments which are required. It is not something which is a copybook or a playbook is available that you just take so many sales guys or just focus on the distribution part or just focus on this kind of a content. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. And so you have to evolve. I mean, you are the steward of the GTM process within the company and within the geography. And you have to kind of write the playbook. You probably write the playbook every 90 days or every 6 months to get it right. That's how you should look at it.
If you were going to talk about and say, okay, let me tell you I'm going to put on my, my thinking cap here, and I'm going to predict the future of the CMO and marketing and where that evolution is going, what do you see? What would you advise us on where this is all headed?
So I think there are three very important trends that I see at this point of time. Today, since your ICP, you have so many guys in that buying committee. The ICP is very different, right? And you have limited number of, say, SDRs or sales guys or marketers, right? So if you actually have to take your message to all these guys, and you cannot use a cookie cutter approach there. You need to have a very mass customization approach, right? A mass personalization approach. That is where the AI comes into picture. So that's the first and foremost thing. That's a big trend that I see. The second big trend that I see is branding is again coming back. The guys who are branding it well, the companies which are actually investing time and money and effort into branding and getting the narrative right, they will be the big winners, right? So far, it was the short-termism of performance marketer. Get more leads and you will be a winner. That will no longer be the situation. So that's very important. And the third one is whether it is your marketing playbook or the GTM playbook, that is going through a change. And this change will keep on going on for the next couple of years. So that's the only constant in your life as a CMO. You need to understand and appreciate that. So those are three big trends that I see.
So here's my takeaway is if we stay focused on the changes and the challenges and the needs of our customer, that will guide the evolution of our go-to-market strategy. I'd just like to make it simple.
Absolutely.
Because you said so much and so much really important things here. If I just boil it right down to it, right, we follow the lead of our customer. And when we do that, I had a third-time B2B CMO on last year, and she was talking about, Steve, throughout my career, the best performing campaigns, the greatest ROI were always the campaigns where the voice of the customer led the voice of the company, right? So if we're going to think about any kind of an evolution, we should be thinking about where are the needs going for our customers and how are we better adapting at that? Our go-to-market strategy needs to wrap that. That's the big takeaway that I'm taking away from what you've been saying here today, right? Is there's got to be a North Star within this, right? We have to solve silos. We have to have defined definitions. We have to have the same definition of an ICP, right? There's very traditional things that aren't typically happening inside of a lot of B2B organizations. The level of content is addressing mostly what we're good at, which is our baby, our tech, our products, our services, right? And so that's what we tend to want to talk about. But those aren't the ways that you get into a conversation and you get involved with the ICP and your products during their buying process and even before then. So I have one last question to ask of you, and that is, if there's one takeaway that you want people to have from this episode that we're recording right now, what would that be?
I would, if you give me, because that is. So there are two takeaways that I have. The era of CMO Darwinism is here, right? And as CMO, you need to take ownership of the GTM, and incremental modification in that is very critical. You need to take ownership of that. So that's my first takeaway. The second and very important takeaway, which is a follow-up of the first one, which is that the fractional roles in marketing is on the rise, and a good CXO will want to utilize the depth of experience about kind of winning propositions or the winning experiments. those are the two very important takeaways for me from this session.
Well, I know people are going to have questions after this, off of this episode. And so would it be appropriate if we gave a link to your LinkedIn profile out that people could reach you?
Absolutely. Yes. Would love to take this conversation forward into LinkedIn.
Fantastic. All right.
Please feel free to reach out to me for any clarification on any of the concept that we talked about today. Happy to help any organization of any size.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on, Shashwat, and kind of expanding our minds and refocusing us on what we need to be thinking about, where we need to be evolving as CMOs. So I appreciate it and appreciate all the time you spent today.
Thank you, Steve. Love this conversation. I hope I was of help to you guys. I would invite anyone who has any questions. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you.